Now, nearly a year ago, I had to make one of the biggest decisions of my life. Now, of course, all of you watching have read the title, but I want to talk about what led up to this moment. And I want to share some things in today's episode that I think everyone wants to hear. I suggest this. Now, I'm going to go through what I studied, the mistakes that I made leading up to that moment, choosing my degree, and what I think all of you should look out for if you're ever thinking about going to college/university. Now, really there's about 4 to 5 significant moments that I want you to take out of this video. Prior to this, I was studying computer science, looking to get onto a bachelor's, and there were a few key things that happened at this time, picking the university and then picking my degree. The first thing was how I felt at the time. Now, since I studied computer science before I went into university, I already had quite a couple pointers when it came to picking my degree. I think that's important. You want to get a feel for things before you pick your degree. Generally, I was quite good at computer science, but there's a crucial detail I want to get onto. Now, during this period, I found a few things. I was quite young at the time, just coming out of what would be the last 2 years of high school for all the Americans, but there's a few things. The first thing was I wasn't a big fan of computer science at the time. Now, this is the beginning of 2023. I didn't like computer science that much, and given that I didn't quite like the subject, you'd think that I wouldn't choose it. Now, some of you might choose a degree and you might not be too sure whether or not it's the right decision, but one of the crucial things I want to mention is when I picked computer science, I was quite borderline on the decision at the time. I didn't know if it was the right decision. I wasn't sure, and in that moment, I didn't really like computer science. I didn't really know what else I was going to like. I had a YouTube channel that I was posting videos to, and I was really liking what I was doing on my channel, but at this time my channel was quite small, so it was quite tricky. So you can kind of see the waterfall right there. Quite a nice walk. First of many maybe on the channel, but I was liking what I was doing on my channel, but it hadn't grown that much, and I was quite obsessed with it. I was really interested in doing more. I probably had about a couple hundred subscribers at the time, and I was a bit of a slacker as well, which doesn't really help with the channel because it's a hobby, and I didn't really take it that seriously. I think as would anyone. I was just kind of playing about with it. But when I chose my degree, I had a teacher tell me one thing before I picked my degree. He told me something that came back to bite me, and it's that if you're not 100% sure on what you want to do after university, you should not pick your degree. Now, when I heard this advice, like anyone, I thought to myself, well, I don't really have much interest. I don't really have much going on for me, and I didn't really know what was going to happen with the channel later down the line. Now, fast forward a few months during 2023, I was quite focused on the channel throughout the summer, and I was also preparing for college. But after I started university, the first year went pretty well, and met loads of different people and different things. But the one thing I want you to keep in mind is the fact that, remember, I wasn't too certain on what I wanted to do. Was not 100% sure. And at the time, I'd still been working on my YouTube channel, but I kind of left it behind for about a month or two. And you know what, I'm just going to switch my hand here. But after the first semester, quite a few things happened. The first one was the fact that, first off, I got through it, done quite well. In your first year of university, your first year of college, it's going to be quite soft, a lot softer than when you come into your second year, your sophomore year. Your sophomore year is going to be quite tricky, as I'll later discover. But the one thing I began to notice was after the first semester, we went home for Christmas. This is still during 2023, by the way. We went home and I published a video to the channel. Now, when I published that video, it blew up. Now, not quite as much as what you'd consider, kind of the blow up or whatever, but the video did quite well. In a couple of days, I got tens of thousands of views on it. But something that I came to realize after that video was actually how much I like making videos. I mean, before this, I was just doing it for a bit of fun and, you know, just kind of playing about with it. But when that video blew up, I had this sort of realization that began, which was the fact that I really liked what I was doing, but I was still in university and I was still revising. I was still studying for the end of semester exams, and I got through them quite well. I kind of smashed through them all. Probably not very humble to say, but it's basically what happened. And you know, at this time I thought I was kind of on the right course. I had a bit of stability going on. You know, I was in university, I was studying, I was doing well, you know, so well that you wouldn't think it would go wrong, funnily enough. But later on, given I had a video that did well on the channel, I decided to keep plucking on, you know, keep going and keep pushing. Probably gonna turn around here, so yeah, it's probably best I turn around here. Yeah, got a bit of a puddle. This sky is beautiful, by the way. This is the UK, obviously. Yeah, I think you could have guessed that by now. But when I went into the second semester, that's really when things began to kind of shift for me. Now, I mentioned earlier that I wasn't a big fan of computer science. I wasn't, you know, the biggest. I didn't really hate it that much. I only hated it when it became very difficult. I'm sure you can probably relate. But when I went into my second semester, I began to notice a few things. The first thing being who I was as a person. Now, this is kind of where things begin to get a bit ugly. During the first semester, when I was drinking, when I was doing kind of all the sort of things you'd think of when you start as a fresher in college, what I realised was this clear distinction that was beginning to emerge, that I found something I quite liked in having my YouTube channel and sort of building it as you would and creating things. But when I was meeting people, you know, making new friends and things like that, what I realised later on when we got into the second semester was quite a defined difference between myself and all my classmates, which is, you know, probably quite an awkward thing to discover when you think, you know, everyone's in the same boat and everyone likes computer science, right? You know, big fan of computer science. I didn't really have much in common with a lot of my classmates. I didn't really have much in common. They were quite boring people. I'll probably have to say that for next episode. What I began to notice was the contrast, the difference that I began to notice with my classmates, with my friends. Well, I'd like to think they were my friends during that time, but look, long story short, in the second semester I started to struggle a little bit. I started to kind of go on a bit of a slippery slope now and then. I probably didn't really engage with it as much or as much in depth because, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I found something I liked. And as I got to the end of the second semester, you know, got through it, done pretty well. I had quite strong marks again in the second semester. But then, you know, the one piece of advice we were given was to, you know, create projects over the summer and do this sort of thing. Now, when we'd finished the first year, finished my freshers year, first thing I began to notice was how hard it was to get myself to code. It was really difficult to just get myself to write a couple lines. I didn't write a single code over the summer, and I was studying computer science. Now, I know some of you probably all think that, oh, well, you know, I'm just trying to enjoy my summer break. No, I was focused on the channel, and after the summer, I went into my second year. Wasn't looking forward to it, you know, unlike in the first year, there was a lot of uncertainty going into the first year, but in the second year, wasn't really looking forward to it. And I was starting to think about what would happen after university. You know, what would happen after college? You know, what am I going to be doing? And I mean, towards the end of the first year, the lecturers were telling us about, you know, people going on placements and, you know, really knowing what it is they wanted to do after their degree. But I didn't really know what I wanted to do at that point. Going into 2024 now, I had the channel. I'd still carried a bit of momentum, but the momentum kind of fell off a bit. I was going into the second year and I wasn't quite sure how things would end up. I'm going to try and avoid this because this is as countryside as you get. You can see that. But going into the second year, I knew I had to be on my ball game. I had to really push through and get through it. You know, I thought I was quite good at computer science, so I just thought I'll just plow through and see where I end up. Now, once again, I'm going to mention, I wasn't a big fan of computer science, but when I started the second year, towards the end of the first week, I started to feel quite a bit sick. And when I was feeling a bit sick, that was when the coursework started. The teaching, the proper teaching started to kick off. So it was quite awkward. Anyway, I was sick for about nearly 2 weeks. I think it was 2 weeks actually. And I was on the back foot with the course. Also to add, the second year's what counts towards your final degree as such. But I was on the back foot, and I found out when you're sick and you're a bit behind and you don't like the course, it becomes quite a deadly combo. And yeah, I spent many hours trying to catch up. I spent many days, a lot of my time trying to catch up and to get through this. But as I was trying to catch up, I was behind, but it kind of began to domino a little bit. You know, I was in a bit of trouble. And when we came towards the end of the semester, you know, I was really stressed. I was really not feeling good. And once again, I didn't know what I wanted to do after university. But we had our exams for the first semester. And after doing the exams, I found out later that I was about 2 to 4% off of passing. And turns out I didn't really like the classes, but I really started to feel out of touch with everything that was happening. Also the work, you know, I was really struggling. And in the first year, I used to get a lot of support from, you know, classmates. Used to help me quite a lot. But when the second year came around and I started to struggle, I noticed none of my classmates replied to any of my messages. They stopped replying. Well, that, first off, that spooks you. You know, when people you used to message suddenly just kind of blank you when we used to talk all the time. But in this moment, when I was struggling and I'd failed my classes, I realized kind of fucked up. And when I was trying to recover the pieces going into the second semester, you know, I was really close to passing in all my classes. But when I got sick, it really worsened a lot of things. You know, I personally think the most crucial part of the semester is the beginning and trying to keep up the momentum. But I'm going into the second semester. My health was not good. I mean, I was running. I was doing all sorts of things to keep myself active. I was eating well. And I thought I was doing all the right things. But I later realised the mistake I made. Of course, when you're picking your degree, you have loads of uncertainty and you have all these sorts of things that, you know, kind of give you the pressure to pick it. You know, family, the fact that I'd studied to get to that point. But what I learned was that if you chase the money and you chase in pursuing what I thought was the easy route, which was to get a good education, get through all this sort of stuff, I'd actually pick the hard route because I didn't like what I was doing. And, you know, at this point, the channel, we're going into 2025 now, the channel was pretty flat, pretty dead. Wasn't much going on with it, but things kind of went wrong. And when I approached the end of the second semester and I was doing my assignments and things, I realized, like, yeah, I already realized that I snookered myself just by technicality. I wasn't able to get a good final mark on my degree and to move on. But I picked computer science because of the stability. It's kind of funny I say this now, the stability and the fact that there was good money in it, but I didn't like it. And when I was recording videos, I was still making videos towards the end of my second year, but I chased money, I chased stability, but I didn't chase happiness. I didn't chase something that gave me meaning, you know, gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. And yeah, the more and more I became kind of alienated with the environment and whatnot, I realized the mistake I made. But I chased money and I chased stability. And the third thing was I took what was basically, it looked like the easy path to having a good, successful life. So if there's anything you can take out of this episode, it's to try and find something that you're really happy with, because I was not happy at that point. Now, if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't be talking about it with all of you today. But you know, if you're unsure about picking a degree, even if you don't know what you want to do afterwards, if you're not 100% sure, it doesn't matter if you're 99% sure, you've got an idea what you want to do afterwards. You know, if it's not exactly, okay, I want to become a software engineer or I want to go do this, do not pick your degree. If you're not 100% sure, don't pick it. Don't pick it. And hopefully this video can bring maybe a bit of clarity to all of you lot that are going through that stage in your life. So that being said, thanks for watching. It's the third episode of the talk series on my channel, and if you want to hear more about my university life and sort of my experiences with people and classmates, just the whole university life in general, hit that subscribe button. Feel free to share your experiences down in the comments below. I'm sure everyone would like to hear about them, given that a lot of people are going back into education. So with that being said, like, subscribe. My name is Dundee. Consider checking out my other videos. You'll probably see them on screen here. And take care. Look at this. Look at that. First video walking and talking. What a dumb idea, right? What a dumb idea.